I wanted hundreds of onions this year and none of them came up. So let me back up a little bit. Why do I want to grow hundreds of onions other than the fact that I can use them all in my cooking? Because onions are literally almost in everything. Well, I am here in Virginia. I am zone 7B and I'm in an intermediate zone for onion growing. What that means is my days aren't long enough, but they're not necessarily short enough for short or long day varieties. So it kind of gets tricky, and actually when Thomas Jefferson grew onions here in Virginia, he had trouble as well, and he actually went to walking onions, which I actually have grown, and I'll give you a couple clips of those as well. But they do not bulb up the same as a traditional bulbed onion that we're used to from getting in the grocery store and using in our cooking. So I want to plant tons of varieties so that I can see what might work well for my zone here, since it is a little bit of a gray, weird area. So I originally was growing Australian brown, flat of Italy, which is a red, Tropina Laguna, which is a red, but it's a smaller form, and the sweet Spanish yellow Utah Jumbo. Now, these are a mixture of intermediate, long day, and I think they're all, yep, intermediate. Let's see, possibly, yep, intermediate. And then this one, I believe is either intermediate or long day. I got these specifically because I know where I'm growing. Now, if you're not familiar with the differences between short day, long day, and intermediate, onions bulb up based on day length, hours, and temperature. So you need both to be correct in order for the bulb to bulb correctly. If you get this wrong, this is what you get. And they still bulbed, but they're very, very tiny. So here in our area, the best bet would be to grow intermediate day varieties. And I say that because we have a short spring that usually jumps straight into the hot of summer, like in May. So we don't get a lot of cool spring to kind of get those leaves going, because onions are actually a cool season vegetable. So what we want to do is get as much leafy veg on it, because the leafy vegetables, each leaf is actually a ring on the onion. So we want as many leaves as possible before it starts to form the bulbs. And that will give us the biggest, juiciest onion for us to use in our cooking. All right, so I planted all of these lovely seeds. I was thrilled, so excited, but so far only 4 came up, and I didn't really know what I did wrong until I did a little bit of research, and I realized that I can get away with keeping seeds and using seeds year after year for at least a few different things, like tomatoes I've had success with, beans, a lot of things I've had no issue with germination. It does decrease each year a little bit more, but the onions, they're only good for 1 year. I bought these back in 2021. So we are now in 2024. So it's really no surprise. I should have known better. Now I do, and now you do too. All right, so what was I gonna do about this? I still want to get a bunch of onions, and I wanna see what's gonna do well in my zone. Thankfully, Lowe's came to my rescue. So I wanted to make sure I could get these in the soil and germinated as soon as possible. So I went to Lowe's instead of ordering online, because ordering online could push me back a week or two depending on how the shipping and the order was placed and filled. So to do as fast as I could, I ran to my Lowe's and they were there. And they actually had 5 varieties for me to choose from. Now here is what I got. So I got, let's see, first variety is the Walla Walla onion. This is a sweet onion. It does not store very well, and it's usually planted in August, which is the fall of the Northwest, for the next year harvest. So they want a really long growing season. Too late for me here, which is why I want to get them in as soon as possible. They can be spring planted, but they don't get as big or as sweet. So I'm trying the Walla Walla because I've heard it's a good variety, but I'm not having my hopes up too much on giant juicy size. But if I get a couple of decent Walla Wallas and I like the flavor, it might work for me. The Virginia Tech Extension Office, they have tons of papers, especially they have a really good one specifically on onions, and I will link it below in case you're interested in checking that out. But they've done onion tests all throughout the different regions of Virginia and found what works and what doesn't work in specific locations. So I'm in the Piedmont area. Walla Walla did not do that great, but they did find that if you have long day variety onions, you might be able to get away with fall planting them and then harvest them the following year. Now that is because we have more mild winters here, and onions are, for the most part, frost tolerant. You might get a variety or two that aren't as frost tolerant. There's a lot of variety in the different varieties. So always do your research if you really want to if you're struggling with something and you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of what would be the best for your zone. Do your research, jump in, and experiment like I am. All right, so that's a Walla Walla. The next one is the Yellow Granix. It is a Valdalia type onion. It's a yellow onion. It's not for storage. It is adapted to the 20 and 36 degree latitude. I am at the 37th degree latitude. Might be pushing it here, but I've had people in North Carolina that I've seen on YouTube say that this was wonderful for them and it's the only one they grow. So I'm taking a stab at it because what's the worst gonna happen? I either don't get any onions or I get tiny onions, or I don't know. Maybe I get awesome onions and I'm like, yes, this is my golden winner. Next one is a red onion, red burgundy. It can store up to 4 to 6 weeks. So this is more of a short storage onion, which will be nice because the other ones that are sweet and bigger and juicier, they have a higher water content, so they go bad quicker. So I'd have to use those up first. But this I could use and store and cook off of for several weeks or several months. It is a short day onion, and that's just about all that I know about that one. Okay. Next one, Texas Grano. This is a white onion. It is very sweet. It is a short day onion, and it has short to moderate day storage. So this is another one that I can kind of hold on to for a little bit and then use in my cooking later on. All right. Another one is Sweet Spanish Yellow Utah Jumbo. Now, if you're paying attention, you would have seen that I tried to start this a few weeks ago, but it's one of the ones that didn't germinate for me. Now, this one is fresher seed, so I'm expecting it to germinate for me. It is a long day / intermediate. So this is one of the varieties that is long day, but might be able to get away with intermediate, so we're gonna try it. And it can get very large, up to 2 pounds. I'm not expecting that here because I'm on the border, but we'll see what we get. Great for slicing, sweet, delicious flavor. Sign me up. All right, so I'm about 10 weeks away from my last frost date. Of course, that can vary time to time. Last year, it wasn't until like May that I was planting everything, but I'm just gonna go get them in the ground since they are frost tolerant. I'm just gonna jump in, get them established, and see what we get. Those are the varieties I'm growing this year. I already covered a couple of the reasons why I'm doing so many different varieties. A couple other ones, in addition to climate, temperatures, and my zone, as far as intermediate zone, are I like to cook, and sometimes recipes do call for either a red onion or a yellow onion or a white onion because of the subtleties of the flavor differences. So if I can get several different varieties of onions to grow, I can use that in my cooking and have it shine through. I also, in this plot here, not sure if you saw, I did start some shallots. So shallots, I believe, are a long day, at least the variety that I got. So I don't know what we're gonna get out of this, but the great thing about onions is even if they don't bulb up a lot, you can always use them as green onions. Another thing is I had a lot of pest pressure, especially from rodents. So I am trying a new thing this year where I am bordering most of my beds with onions or onion type alliums. And that is to try to hide them with the scent and decrease some of that rodent pressure. I did this with my garlic, and I'm going to continue it with my shallots and my onions. All right, so I actually did plant these already. I planted them last week. I have 3 varieties here, and then I had overflow for the other 2 varieties. So I will be keeping an eye on these and keeping you guys updated on what we're getting as far as sprouts and transplanting, and then what we actually get later on in the year. Now, I'm talking specifically about bulbing onions. I also mentioned earlier about the shallots. Now, shallots are kind of like onion, but they really give you a depth of flavor. If you've never cooked with shallots, they really give you almost like that restaurant quality of flavor. It's almost like it's sharp when you cut it, but it's sweeter and caramelizes a little bit better when you put it in the saucepan. So try it if you've never tried it. I recommend it. It's delicious. So shallots is another type. You also get bunching onions where you can, or potato-like onions that actually form little bulbs, but they grow and they're perennial. I have not tried my hand at those. However, I have grown green onions. About 2021, I actually grabbed some green onions from the store. After using them, I had the stump of it, which was just the growing zone of the bottom, which is the white part, and then the roots on it. What I did was I took those, put them in a glass container with water in the bottom, and waited till the roots grew more, and then I transplanted them into my garden. And then after a year, this is what I had. Now, that entire year, as green growth was growing on those onions, I was able to use them in my cooking as a green onion. So I bought it one time at the store, rooted it out, and had it for several years, and eventually took them out because they're getting a little unruly and a little too big. The last onion that I've grown is called Egyptian walking onion. Now these are really fun, nifty onions. They grow kind of similar to the green onion does. It forms a little bit of bulb, but it never actually bulbs up. It does have a little bit more solidness at the bottom. But I like to grow them as a green onion. And then when they come back the following year, they actually throw up a flower stalk, but at the top is not a flower. It's just more little bulbs, like bulblets of onions that you can break apart and plant in the garden. So it's basically you get one time and you can have it forever, share with all your friends, and you will always have onions. Now, I kind of tore mine out as well because I was going through the garden. It was very hot and dry, and I thought I had so many that I would never miss them, but I put them in a bucket and forgot about them, and they did not, they didn't make it. So, unfortunately, I have just a patch of a handful size in the garden right now, and they're very, very tiny baby bulbs. They're some of the bulbets that actually fell in the garden that are coming up. So I'm hoping those will do well. I'm going to kind of baby them a little bit so that I can continue growing the walking onions, and so I can share those with my friends and family and continue having those. So if the bulb onions or bunching onions don't do well for me, I'll always have those because it is really fun to grow them, and they're so low-key, easy going, easy to grow. So please subscribe if you want to follow my channel and get those alerts about what is happening in my garden and see what we find out. Fingers crossed.